First story. A friend sent his husband a hidden camera recording of his wife cheating on him with a famous singer. Terrifying revenge for cheating. Watch it all the way to the end, you won't regret it. I have heard amazing stories of adultery more than once or twice, but I never thought I would be in their shoes. I still don't understand how that happened. My wife has never required anything, according to appearances, and I appear to make a respectable living. Yes, in theory, and my intimate life has always been at a high level, or so it has previously seemed to me. One thing happens as a result, my wife starts to walk and my horns start to scratch the ceiling. Where did everything begin? Random encounters or discussions have frequently occurred in my life and drastically altered the course of my entire existence. I owe my professional success and useful relationships outside of work to them. This time, the situation was much the same. I frequently do this to give my brain a little vacation during my lunch break as I leisurely strolled across the city and casually turned my head in the direction of a neighboring restaurant. What was there that I saw? It goes without saying that my wife is with his ex-boyfriend. I nearly lost my footing, even with my eyes somewhat obscured by the onslaught of feelings. I collected myself after a few moments, determined it wouldn't be too hot to wait until nightfall, and decided to finally put an end to the problem. I most definitely wouldn't allow someone to get me horny. I eventually made it to my workplace where I started to wait in a frenzy for the conclusion of the workday, because there was going to be a fairly serious conversation had something to start it. In this brief period of time, I more or less managed to calm my nerves. But I had no idea what a true performance would be in these kinds of situations. Accused his wife of infidelity right away, what if she simply met her ex by chance in a restaurant? But given that the restaurant was located 10 kilometers from our home at the opposite end of the city, what was she to do there? There were many unanswered questions, therefore it was important to choose the best answer in order to get the complete truth. Finally, the workday came to an end. I got in my car and slowly made my way home while thinking about everything in a delirious manner. I didn't even realize how far I had traveled. I was now at home. I sat for a while before getting up to go. My wife threw herself into my arms from the threshold, as she always did. I slowly backed away and calmly entered the kitchen before sitting down at the dining room table and requesting my wife make me some coffee. This is how I usually end my day at the workplace. She followed my instructions as if nothing had happened. So I inquired as to her day's activities and any recent events. My wife lied calmly and in front of my eyes that she had gone to the store with friends and purchased a few new blouses without even flinching. Yes, because of this kind of snobbery, I almost fell off the chair there. It must be able to be so bold as to lie and not blush. Then it occurred to me that we should gather incriminating proof before dumping all the wives. I thus made that choice. I sneaked out the following morning and snatched Rocker's keys. I unlocked it and placed the cover recorder in a private location. What? It would provide a sizable body of proof. Following our breakfast together, I went to work as usual. Such a tight pace carried on for 3 days. The work piled up so much that I nearly forgot about the event with his wife, as if by coincidence. But as the long-awaited weekend finally arrived, I made the decision to check the recorder. I watched that while almost shaking my hands. My worst concerns came true as I had expected. How much was my wife cheating on me? She was speaking to his best buddy when he claimed that she had drunkenly flirted with 2 of her coworkers at the next corporate party, in addition to the fact that she frequently has meetings with his ex in the exact automobile I got her for her birthday. I was practically on the ground there. It turns out that she had been cheating on me virtually non-stop and I, being stupid and brainless, had not even caught her. Now though, I was certain about my wife. What to do with her at this point was the only crucial decision I had to make. Living with her wasn't something I wanted. To induce regret in her for her actions. I could carry it out. I made the decision to come up with a plan of action. I'll start dancing her now. The next day, I took the day off work and traveled to a nearby small town to visit the father of my wife. I want to give you some background information about this individual. He had spent practically his whole life serving his nation as a retired colonel. These are not simply hollow words. This is a genuine guy who sacrificed everything for the benefit of his country. I encountered him pretty frequently, and we frequently went to him in the bath when I was caring for his daughter who would later become my wife. I treated her badly both times I spoke to her. The colonel probably believed he had given his daughter in marriage to a virgin since he barely ever allowed her to leave the house. She only had activities at school and home. I suppose that's why when she married me, she went all out and went out with everyone else. I thus made the decision to exact this exact retaliation. I was well aware that my wife's father would probably just kill my wife if he learned what his cherished daughter had done. Of course, I may be exaggerating, but he would have likely done the same if she had been present when I informed him. The colonel first stumbled, and for a few moments I even worried a bit about his health because of how old he was. But it turned out that the soldier was a tough guy. He poured himself a drink of vodka and quickly drained it while turning to face me. Then he stealthily rose up and stumbled into the next room after repeating the same technique twice more. I then understood that I needed to go back. The essential information had been sent to the intended recipient, and now that I had forced my wife out of the family home, repercussions were certain to follow. Thankfully, we hadn't started a family yet. I quietly sat in the driver's seat and headed to the home. Right first, I want to reassure everyone that nothing dreadful or heinous occurred to my wife. When I got home, I collected all of my ex-wife's belongings in a cool-headed manner and calmly threw them out the door. I should make mention of the significant fact that my wife was observing everything I did. Even so, she did not move. She was able to decipher everything from my icy gaze. I didn't cause a big controversy since I knew very well that my wife cared more about the financial values I could provide for her than about me. But just now, everything would vanish from her in a second. After all, I, a licensed attorney, had taken the trouble to draft a prenuptial agreement, and my wife would now be without all she had been enjoying so safely for the previous several years. The actual and most heinous kind of punishment for her is that. Finally, a year later, I ran into a friend of my ex-girlfriend and casually asked about her well-being. She said that her father had discontinued all communication and thrown her out of the house. She currently resides outside of her hometown with a man she has a common-law marriage to. They lead relatively simple lives, some could even say separate ones. My ex-wife frequently writes on social media about how I wrecked her entire life and how I was such a jerk. For more than 20 years, my wife and I had shared a home. 6 months ago, we had our anniversary. Our recently married 21-year-old daughter got us a brand new contemporary TV set as a gift for this occasion. Our family was never wealthy, but we always had enough money. My wife, a writer by trade, occasionally goes to other cities on business, which provides the family with a substantial one-time income. Together, we both make decent money. Of course, I wish she didn't have a job at all, but she enjoys writing articles and interacting with new people so much that she doesn't want to quit her job. By the way, I was the one who started her employment at the previous job, since the manager of the magazine where my wife currently works is a longtime friend of mine. Up until a certain point, I was generally content. My wife informed me one evening. I can't remember when exactly, a month or two ago, that she was traveling to a nearby town to interview a rock star who was due to perform. I was a little disappointed since I planned to spend the next evening with her alone, but my wife was so thrilled to tell me about the trip's plans that I couldn't help but grin and give her a beautiful kiss. I wished her well and a safe journey. She came back 3 days later. Her actions were peculiar in some way. I questioned her numerous times about her health and her ability to carry out her intentions. In any case, how went the interview? In response to all of my inquiries, she grinned at me bewilderedly and assured me that everything was okay. Even though I had no more questions, something inside of me kept me up at night like a creaky cat, and there was a reason, it turned out. Soon after, I received a call from an old buddy who had assisted in getting my wife a job and invited me to the bar. I affirmed. It had been a while since we had our last drink together. We met and had a casual conversation about something at the time specified in the contract on the spot, but things continued to get worse. My friend offered me a drink or two and then launched into a monologue, saying, "Buddy, I have something to tell you." Just pledged to exercise self-control, though wary, I nodded. Igor revealed to me information that I could only have imagined in my darkest nightmare. My wife had betrayed me when I was on my most recent work trip. The offender stated it after becoming wasted during an interview with a music star. My friend removed the video from the changing area. I regret seeing the tape. My fury, bitterness, and rage knew no bounds. My wife naturally noticed my condition when I arrived home. When she realized what had happened, she almost fell to her knees and started to apologize and give me reasons. My pain was severe. How does one forgive such an act? And earlier, we were really content. In response to her cries for mercy, I remained silent. I didn't say a word as I quietly left the flat. The next day, I went to my daughter's place to sleep so as not to disturb her and her husband. I behaved deliriously for the next 24 hours. I can't recall how I completed work-related reports, reached her, or returned. I came late at my home. My daughter and son, along with the rest of my family, were there and waiting for me. They voiced their thoughts on the mother's genuineness and regret. The cheater also promised to resign from her position and show me that she was truly sorry for her error and was unable to forgive herself. She pleaded with me not to divorce her. I kept quiet while I listened to them. And I was even relieved that my kids had the good sense to retain their fond feelings for both a guilty parent and me as a parent. But I'm unable to pardon my wife. I keep seeing the horrible videos picture. I understand that I will never be able to sleep with my wife again. That concludes the tale of our hero. Comment with your thoughts and don't forget to subscribe and like. You have a lot of wonderful stories to read. Additionally, you can send me your original life stories, which I will share. And as usual, I send my best wishes your way. And best wishes. I appreciate your attention. The next story is about a husband coming home early in the morning and seeing his wife naked on her lover. Sometimes people decide on the spot who don't expect this from themselves. And the results are sometimes shocking and sometimes hilarious. In this case, the cheating spouse ended up doing just fine. And the cheating spouse was left with nothing. After stories like this, you really start to believe in karma or divine providence. Who's to say? It all started when Vadim in the social networking news saw the publication of a confession of a certain girl whom he accepted as a friend a few months ago at her request. The gist of it came down to her having an affair on the side. And she, appropriately enough, was married. She asked for advice on what to do about her husband and her lover. She loves her husband, but has an irresistible craving for a new partner. This craving is exclusively animal in nature. Desire for sex with a man after his appearance sex with her husband is not one at all. But at the same time, there is no mental craving for a new partner. That is why she is ashamed in front of her husband. And she cannot stop. Vadim wrote a comment that she has to make a choice at any rate or tell her husband everything about her inability to stop. If he knew then that he was really giving advice to his own wife. But there must have been a vibe because he got a chill inside of him after he posted it. Suddenly, he thought about his relationship with his wife and realized how estranged they had become in the last couple of months. He also wondered specifically about his wife. She was getting a little rambunctious. Vadim decided to talk to his wife, discuss their lives, and do it in a positive atmosphere. A couple of days later, he took the afternoon off from work and bought a bouquet of flowers, champagne, and drove home. His wife works in the network and promotes social networking accounts. Naturally, he wanted to surprise her in this way. But not every husband is as lucky as he is. He saw his wife live in bed with another man in the process. She was on top of him in a pose on the stairs. I don't know about Vadim, but I certainly wouldn't have reacted the way he did. They were engrossed in the act of merging, didn't notice his arrival. Vadim went into the hall, took his camera, and spied some pictures. Then he left the house. He walked aimlessly around the city, coming to his senses. Thoughts of revenge ran through his head. He imagined all sorts of ways to humiliate his wife. But after walking around for a few hours, the fuse had passed. Vadim firmly decided not to clarify the relationship, just to post pictures on Facebook, thus alerting his wife. Of course, this surprise was not without revenge. All mutual acquaintances saw the Pico picture. The wife was shocked. A husband who would not accept his wife's lies. That's how he titled his post. While posting a series of pictures of adultery on Facebook, He also wrote, when you came home to cuddle your wife and find another man in bed with your beloved, something inside forever dies. Good men deserve good women. Goodbye, Alice. Facebook users then erupted. The vast majority stood up in support of the guy's despicable wife. Everyone wrote to him. You're too good for her. Subsequently, I wrote to him to find out how their situation was resolved. He narrated that they were divorced. And his wife also told him that she had made that post about cheating on her husband under a different account. She told him about it, wanting to soften her guilt. Like she was agonizing, actually asking him to forgive her. But when he told her that he decided to surprise her under the influence of that publication, she regretted writing it. But as they say, that's karma in action. And Vadim started a relationship with a girl who was his virtual friend. He liked her. But while he was married, he couldn't. The day kicked off just like any other Tuesday. Sun streaming through the blinds, coffee brewing in the kitchen, and there was Erica, my wife, acting a bit jittery. She was fiddling with her phone, her thumbs dancing over the screen faster than a pianist in a concert. I, Danny, strolled in, humming some tune from the radio, and bam. She hit her phone quicker than a cat spotting a cucumber. Odd, right? I didn't dwell on it much then. Chalked it up to her being her usual secretive self. But then she hits me with this story, her mom's sick, apparently. Needs to visit her, pronto. I'm not heartless, you know? Despite the little phone incident, I felt for her. Her mom's a sweet lady, makes the best pecan pie in the county. So, there I was, trying to be the good guy. I remember reaching into the closet, pulling out this sleek Zara bag I had snagged during a sale. Thought it'd cheer her up. Here, I said, handing it over. Something to make your day better. But Erica, oh boy, she looked at that bag like I'd handed her a box of expired chocolates. This? Danny, this is too cheap, she scoffed. Her nose scrunched up like she'd smelled something foul. I won't lie, that stung. I'm not Mr. Moneybags, but I try, you know? I brushed it off, though. Kept the smile plastered on my face. All right, if you don't like it, no biggie, I said, taking the bag back. Inside, my heart sank a bit, but hey, that's marriage for you, ups and downs. She left in a hurry after that, barely a goodbye. And there I was, standing in our little living room that suddenly felt too big, holding a rejected Zara bag. The morning sun didn't seem that bright anymore. I shook it off, went about my day. Work was the usual, numbers, meetings, coffee that tasted like burnt toast. But Erica's phone thing, it nagged at me, like a splinter you can't get out. Why hide it, why the rush? I kept turning it over in my mind, like a detective mulling over clues. But life's not a detective novel, is it? Sometimes a hidden phone is just a hidden phone. Or so I thought. That evening, the house felt empty. Erica didn't come back from her mom's. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. Hey, it's me, just checking in, hope your mom's okay, I said to the beep, feeling like a guy talking to a brick wall. I ended up microwaving some leftovers, plopping down in front of the TV. Some sitcom was on, but the laughs didn't reach me. My mind was stuck on that morning, the hidden phone, the rejected gift, Erica's rushed exit. Little did I know, that was just the beginning. The first piece in a puzzle that was about to turn my world upside down. But hey, that's a story for another chapter. For now, it was just me, a cold plate of spaghetti, and a whole lot of questions. So, let me paint the picture for you. It's evening, right? I'm back from a day of what felt like endless spreadsheets and mind-numbing meetings. I'm thinking maybe Erica's back, maybe we'll have a decent chat, you know? But man, was I in for a ride. The moment I step in, it's like I walked into a storm. Erica's there in the kitchen, arms crossed, looking like she's ready to go 10 rounds in the ring. And then she starts, it's like a dam bursting. All about how I promised her the moon and the stars, a better life, the whole shebang. But here we are, same old, same old. Her words, man, they cut deep. She's going on and on about how I'm stuck in a rut, how I'm not living up to the big dreams I sold her when we first met. You said things would change, Danny, she says, her voice dripping with disappointment. But look at us, nothing's different. I'm there, standing with my coat still on, feeling smaller by the second. It's tough, you know? Hearing your own wife doubting if you'll ever amount to anything. It's like every not yet and soon I've ever said has been piling up, and now the pile's toppling over. I try to get a word in, maybe calm the waters. Erica. I'm trying, you know I am, I say. But it's like talking to a brick wall. She's got this look in her eyes, this mix of anger and, I dunno, disappointment? And then, she hits me with the kicker. I'm tired of waiting, Danny. Tired of empty promises. Her voice is cold, like a winter chill. I want more, and I don't know if you can give it to me. That stung. Felt like someone had socked me in the gut. I'm standing there, words stuck in my throat, watching the woman I love question our entire life together. It was one of those moments, you know? Where everything you thought was solid starts to crumble. The rest of the night was this awkward dance. We're in the same room, but miles apart. Dinner was a silent affair, the clinking of cutlery the only sound. I wanted to say something, anything, to bridge the gap. But what do you say when it feels like your whole world's been flipped upside down? I hit the sack early, pretending I was tired. But truth be told, I just wanted to escape, even if it was just into sleep. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, Erica's words kept replaying in my head. Doubt, frustration, disappointment, and nasty cocktail to gulp down. Little did I know, this was just the tip of the iceberg. The first cracks in a dam about to burst. But there I was, clueless, hoping maybe sleep would wash it all away. Spoiler alert. It didn't. Alright, so buckle up, 'cause this is where things take a wild turn. It's a few days after that clash with Erica, and I'm still reeling, right? Then I stumble upon this bombshell, Erica's got a secret. And not the good kind. I'm at home, doing my usual after-work routine, you know, changing into something comfy, thinking about what to scrounge up for dinner. That's when I find this fancy-looking business card on the floor. It's got this name, Reggie, in flashy letters, and some website I've never heard of. Looks high-end, the kind of card you'd expect from a guy who wears suits worth more than my car. Curiosity gets the better of me. I hop on my laptop and check out this website. And there it is, in all its gaudy glory, a sugar daddy site. My heart's doing this weird drum solo in my chest as I piece things together. Erica's been meeting this Reggie guy, some loaded dude who's probably got more money in his wallet than I make in a month. Later that night, Erica waltzes in, all smiles and giggles. She's carrying shopping bags that scream, expensive. I can't help it, I ask her about it. And she spills, like it's no big deal. Oh, Reggie got them for me, she says, her eyes shining. He knows how to treat a lady. Not like our bargain bin lifestyle. Man, it felt like a slap to the face. She's going on about how Reggie showers her with gifts, takes her to fancy places, the whole 9 yards. Stuff I could never afford on my salary. I'm standing there, trying to process this, while she's comparing me to Mr. Moneybags. It was surreal, you know? My wife, talking up another guy, flaunting his wealth like it's some kind of scorecard. Each word she said was like a punch to my ego. I'm trying to stay calm, but inside, I'm a mess. How did we get to this point? When did our life turn into some twisted soap opera? I remember lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing. Erica's asleep next to me, but it's like she's a million miles away. I'm trying to figure out what to do, how to feel. Angry, betrayed, sad, it's like a tornado of emotions, and I'm smack in the middle of it. This whole Reggie thing, it's more than just about money or gifts. It's like a mirror, showing me how far apart Erica and I have drifted. And the worst part? I didn't see it coming. I thought we were doing okay, but apparently, I was living in a dream world. So there I was, lost in thoughts, in a bed that suddenly felt too big. Erica's words about Reggie echoing in my head, a reminder of a reality I wasn't prepared to face. But hey, that's life, right? Full of surprises, some good, some like a punch in the gut. Before we dive into the next chapter of this roller coaster story, I've got a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying this tale of love, adventure, and unexpected twists, how about showing some love? Hit that like button to let me know you're on board. It's a simple click for you, but it means the world to me. It's like a virtual high five, telling me to keep the stories coming. And hey, why stop there? Go ahead and hit subscribe too. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. Okay, so this is where things get a bit wild. Remember Reggie, the sugar daddy extraordinaire? Turns out, the guy's not some random rich dude. He's actually my buddy, part of a crazy scheme I cooked up. Yeah, you heard that right. Danny's got a sneaky side, too. Let me take you back a bit. A couple of weeks before all this drama unfolded, I stumbled upon some texts on Erica's phone. Not your everyday, hey, how's it going? Kinda texts, but the kind that makes your stomach do backflips. Flirty stuff, you know? And they weren't from me. That hit me hard, like really hard. I didn't want to believe it. Erica and me, we've had our ups and downs, but this? It felt like a whole different ballgame. I needed answers, but confronting her head on? That was risky. She'd just deny everything, probably. So, enter Reggie. The guy's been my friend since high school. We've been through all sorts of stuff together. Failed exams, bad dates, you name it. I tell him about the texts, my suspicions, and before I know it, we're hatching this plan straight out of a spy movie. The idea was simple. Reggie pretends to be this wealthy guy from a sugar daddy site, woos Erica, and we see how far she'd go. He was perfect for the role. Guy's got this charm and swagger that could sell ice to Eskimos. Plus, he's a pretty good actor. Won the lead role in our high school play once, remember that like it was yesterday. I won't lie, it felt weird. Setting up my own wife? But the doubt was eating me up inside. I had to know if Erica was really stepping out on me. So, Reggie sets up his profile, throws in some photos of him looking all dapper and rich, and bingo, he's in the game. And Erica fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. She starts meeting Reggie, thinking he's this big shot who can give her the high life. Meanwhile, I'm getting the play-by-play from Reggie. Every lavish gift, every fancy dinner, he tells me everything. Sitting there, hearing about my wife going out with another man, even if it was my friend, it was tough. Like swallowing a bitter pill. Every detail Reggie shared was a jab to my heart, but I had to keep up the act, had to know how deep the rabbit hole went. Those were some long nights, let me tell you. Lying in bed next to Erica, knowing she's living this double life. It was surreal, like watching a movie where you know something the main character doesn't. Except, I was the main character, and the movie was my life going off script. But there it was, the truth laid bare. Erica, caught up in Reggie's web, blind to the fact that it was all a setup. And me? I was the guy behind the curtain, pulling the strings, hoping that somehow, this would all make sense in the end. But life's not a movie, is it? There's no guarantee of a happy ending. Alright, so here we are at the big showdown, the moment of truth. My heart's pounding like a drum in a rock concert, you know? I've got this whole script planned out in my head, ready to confront Erica with everything I know. I remember it was a Thursday evening. Erica walks in, all casual like, no idea the storm that's about to hit. I'm there in the living room, the TV's on, but I might as well have been on a different planet. My mind's racing, thinking about how to start this whole confrontation thing. So, I just blurted out. Erica, we need to talk. Classic line, right? Her face changes, like she knows something's up. But she plays it cool, sits down, and hits me with a casual, "What's up, Danny?" Then I lay it all out. The texts I saw, Reggie, the sugar daddy website, everything. I'm watching her face for any sign of guilt or shock, but guess what? Nothing. She's as cool as a cucumber. And then she hits me with it, the blame game. Danny, if you made more money, maybe I wouldn't have looked elsewhere. Just like that, no remorse, no apologies. As if it's my fault she's stepping out. Man, that stung, felt like a punch in the gut. But I had an ace up my sleeve. I tell her about my recent promotion at work, the big raise that came with it. I'm talking serious dough, the kind that could change our lives. Her reaction, her eyes light up, like she's just won the lottery. Really, Danny? That's amazing, she says, all excited. But to me, it's too little, too late. It was clear as day, her regret wasn't about the cheating, it was about missing out on the cash. The room felt smaller then, the air thicker. I'm standing there, realization dawning on me. This wasn't about love or our marriage. For Erica, it was all about the money. I tried to keep my cool, but inside, I was a whirlwind of emotions. Angry, hurt, betrayed, you name it. This was the woman I married, the one I thought I'd spend my life with. And here she was, more interested in my wallet than our relationship. It was a harsh truth to swallow. The woman I loved, the one I shared my dreams in bed with, was a stranger. A stranger who cared more about dollar signs than the vows we took. So, there we were, in the middle of our living room, the truth hanging between us like a thick fog. And me? I felt like a guy who'd just woken up from a dream, only to find out the nightmare was real. The confrontation ended with more questions than answers. Erica, with her newfound interest in my finances, and me, realizing that maybe this marriage was built on sand. It was a tough pill to swallow, a reality check I never saw coming. Here's where the roller coaster hits the peak, folks. After that showdown with Erica, my mind's made up. It's like a switch flipped inside me. I can't be with someone who's all about the cash, who sees love as a transaction. It's not me, never has been. So, I'm standing there, heart pounding, and I say it. Erica, it's over. I can't do this anymore. My voice is steady, but inside, I'm a mess. It's one thing to think about ending your marriage, it's a whole other ballgame to actually say it out loud. She looks at me, her face a mix of shock and disbelief. You're joking, right, Danny? She says, laughing it off. But I'm dead serious. No, Erica, I'm not. Us. It's not working. I tell her about the new place I've got lined up. A small apartment, nothing fancy, but it's mine. A fresh start, a place to rebuild from all this mess. She's still not buying it, thinks I'm bluffing. You wouldn't leave me, she says, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. But here's the thing, I'm done playing games. Done with the lies, the deceit, the whole charade. I need to be true to myself, and that means walking away from a relationship that's turned toxic. Erica's face changes then, it's like the reality of it all finally hits her. She starts bargaining, pleading. We can work this out, Danny. Think about all the good times. But it's like she's talking about a different marriage. The one I remember's been marred by lies and betrayal. I'm packing my stuff, and it's surreal. Each shirt, each book, each random knick-knack, they're all pieces of a life I'm leaving behind. Erica's watching me, and I can see the wheels turning in her head. She's realizing this is really happening. It's a weird feeling, you know? Walking away from the life you've built with someone. There's this mix of freedom and loss, excitement and sadness. But deep down, I know it's the right move. I can't be with someone who doesn't value me for me, who sees my worth only in dollar signs. The apartment's small, but it's a breath of fresh air. No more tiptoeing around, no more secrets and lies. Just me, my thoughts, and a chance to start over. The first night there, I'm sitting on a second-hand couch, pizza box on the coffee table, and I realize. This is it, the first day of the rest of my life. It's scary and exhilarating all at once. Leaving Erica, starting anew, it's a leap into the unknown. But sometimes, you've got to close one door to open another. So, there I am, in my new place, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. But one thing's clear, I'm moving forward, on my own terms. It's a revelation, a turning point. And I'm ready for whatever comes next. So, we're nearing the end of this crazy ride, and let me tell you, it doesn't get any less wild. There I was, settling into my new pad, boxes still half unpacked, when who shows up? Erica, and she's not the confident, money-focused woman I'd seen lately. No, she's a mess, tears streaming down her face, voice shaky. It's like a complete 180. She's standing there in my new living room, which still smells like fresh paint and hope, and she's pleading. Danny, please, I made a mistake. I didn't realize what I had until I lost it. Her words are pouring out like water from a broken dam. All apologies, promises to change, the works. But here's the thing, it felt off. You know when you're watching a movie, and the actor's performance just isn't hitting the mark? That's how it felt, like she was playing the part of the remorseful wife, but I wasn't buying a ticket to that show. I'm standing there, leaning against my new, not-so-stylish kitchen counter, just listening to her. Part of me, that old part that loved her, wanted to believe it. Wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, we could fix this train wreck. But then, the new me, the me that's been through the emotional ringer, he's shaking his head. He knows better. Erica, I finally say, cutting through her river of words. It's not about giving you another chance. It's about being true to myself. And the truth is, I can't trust you anymore. My voice is calm, but firm. It's like I'm hearing myself from outside my body, and I sound like a guy who's finally got his act together. She stops then, her sobbing pauses, and she looks at me. Really looks at me, maybe for the first time in a long time. And I see it, the realization in her eyes. She sees that I'm not the same Danny who'd bend over backward to make her happy, regardless of how she treated me. The air in the room shifts. It's heavy, filled with all the things we never said, all the things we hid from each other. And in that moment, I knew. I knew that walking away was the right choice. She stayed for a bit, trying to salvage what was left of our marriage. But it was like trying to glue back a shattered vase. Even if you put it back together, the cracks will always show. And our marriage? It was cracked beyond repair. Eventually, she left, the door closing softly behind her. And there I was, alone in my half-empty apartment, surrounded by the echoes of our last conversation. It was sad, sure, but it was also freeing. Like I'd just shed a weight I'd been carrying for too long. That night, I sat on my balcony, looking up at the stars, a cold beer in my hand. And I felt at peace. The kind of peace you feel when you've made a tough decision, but you know it was the right one. Erica's desperate plea, it was a closing chapter. A necessary end to a story that had run its course. And me? I was ready to start right. The moment I heard the garage door close well past midnight, I knew something was off. Work's been crazy, she said, her words a rehearsed melody. I wanted to believe her, to trust that the mounting hours at the office were just the ebb and flow of project demands. But the seed of doubt, once planted, is a relentless sprout. Dinner was cold, again, I mentioned, keeping my tone neutral, masking the cocktail of frustration and concern brewing inside. Sorry, this new project with Tom is consuming all my time, she sighed, collapsing into the chair opposite me, avoiding eye contact. Tom, her new project partner, was becoming a frequent character in our nightly exchanges, his presence in our conversations overshadowing his physical absence. In an attempt to bridge the widening gap between us, I proposed, how about we take a weekend trip? Just us, no work, no Tom. The idea hung in the air, a frail attempt at rekindling what was being smothered by unspoken tensions. I can't, she replied too quickly, the project deadline is looming. Maybe after. The pattern of late nights became punctuated by her phone lighting up with messages that elicited secretive smiles. Just Tom being silly about the project, she'd laugh off my raised eyebrows. But the unease settled in like an unwelcome guest. Then came the day I found the receipt, a romantic dinner for two, not on any of our recent date nights. My heart sank. It was a project celebration, she explained, her words smooth, practiced. But the celebration didn't include me, and her assurances did little to mend the cracks forming in my trust. Each excuse, each dismissal, felt like a brick in a wall she was building between us. A wall I couldn't see over, couldn't break through. The foundation of our life together, once solid, now felt like shifting sand beneath my feet. It was a Thursday, just shy of 6 p.m., when I decided to surprise Marla at work with dinner from that Thai place she loves. My gut churned with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as I navigated the familiar corridors of her office building, a steaming bag of pad thai and spring rolls in hand. I hadn't seen her workspace in months. Marla's project with the new guy, Jeff, had her burning the midnight oil more often than not. I missed her, missed us. Reaching her office, I knocked, waiting for that bright smile that used to light up my world. Instead, I found her desk, stark and impersonal, missing the collage of our life together that once claimed space beside her monitor. The framed photo from our last vacation, the silly caricature from the state fair, even the little succulent I'd given her for Valentine's Day, all gone. My heart sank. Had I missed a memo on office decor, or was this a message meant only for me? Before I could process further, Marla looked up, her expression a mix of surprise and, was that annoyance? What are you doing here? She asked, not unkindly, but with a distance that felt like miles. I thought we could have dinner together, you know, like old times, I managed, feeling suddenly foolish with my bag of takeout. She glanced at her watch, then back at me, her eyes softening slightly. I can't, babe, deadlines breathing down my neck. Jeff and I have to work this weekend to catch up. Her words, meant to explain, felt more like a chasm widening between us. I tried not to let my disappointment show. We haven't really talked in weeks, Marla. Feels like I'm sleeping next to a stranger. Are we okay? She sighed, a tired, drawn-out breath that seemed to carry more weight than the air it displaced. I'm just stressed, that's all. We're fine. I'm fine. This project is just a lot. I nodded, though her words did little to ease the growing pit in my stomach. The ride home was a blur of streetlights and unanswered questions, the Thai food growing cold beside me. The days that followed were a testament to our crumbling reality. Our anniversary came and went without a whisper from Marla. When I brought it up, she blinked in genuine surprise before mumbling something about losing track of days because of work exhaustion. But the real gut punch came when I stumbled upon her phone, lighting up with a smirk. Marla laughed it off when I confronted her, insisting it was an inside joke about a client. I wanted to believe her, really, I did. But the laughter in her voice didn't reach her eyes, and those eyes, once so warm and open, were now shuttered and cool. Our conversations dwindled to nothing more than necessary exchanges, the warmth we once shared reduced to cold, functional sentences. Each word felt like a brick, building a wall between us that I couldn't scale, no matter how hard I tried. I missed my wife, the woman I married, but she was slipping through my fingers, and I was powerless to stop it. The night was cooler than usual, a relief from the sweltering summer days we'd been having. But the chill in the air was nothing compared to the ice forming in my gut as I watched her laugh, her head thrown back in a way that used to be reserved for me. There she was, my wife, with him. They were just entering the lobby of a hotel that screamed guilty pleasures and secret rendezvous. The kind of place we used to sneak off to when life seemed like an adventure waiting to be had, not the silent battleground it had become. I waited until the following morning, the images from last night burning behind my eyes, refusing to be blinked away. The confrontation was inevitable, like a storm that had been brewing on the horizon for months. I saw you last night, I began, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Her reaction was immediate and defensive. Saw me where? What? Do you have me followed now? The accusation stung, more so because of the disbelief that clouded her features. At the hotel, with him, I pushed on, needing her to understand the depth of betrayal. Her laugh was sharp, cutting. You're being ridiculous, why would you even think? She didn't finish, but the implication hung heavily between us. The days that followed were a blur of denial and confrontation. I found a pregnancy test hidden beneath the bathroom trash, an ominous sign of secrets kept and lies told. It's not what you think, she insisted, a rehearsed line that did nothing to soothe the growing chasm between us. It's for a friend, she claimed, but the trust that should have made me believe her was already shattered, ground into dust by doubt and suspicion. Our home, once filled with laughter and warmth, had become a battleground for silent wars and whispered betrayals. The affection she once had for me had cooled into something unrecognizable, leaving behind a shell of the love we used to share. Arguments became our new normal, erupting over trivial things that neither of us would remember the next day. Then, one evening, I overheard her. I miss you, she whispered into the phone, her voice a tender caress meant for someone else. My heart fractured a little more with each word, the undeniable evidence of her affection for him laying waste to any denial she had left. His name became a constant in our conversations, her praise for him a knife twisting with every mention. He's just been so helpful with the project, she'd say, a smile in her voice that hadn't been there when speaking to me in months. An anonymous tip came through, a cowardly text suggesting what I already knew but refused to face. Your wife's affair isn't just rumors, it read, a faceless accuser in a sea of denials. I wanted to dismiss it, to believe in the woman I married, but the foundation of our marriage had crumbled beyond recognition. Then, out of the blue, she suggested we take a break. Maybe some time apart would do us good, she said, her eyes avoiding mine. The suggestion hung between us, a final admission of the distance that had grown too vast to bridge. Each day, the woman I shared my life with became more of a stranger, her heart and affections promised to another. The realization was a slow poison, eroding the remnants of trust and love I clung to. In the end, it wasn't just about discovering the affair. It was about witnessing the slow, painful death of a marriage I thought was built to last. The moment I hung up the phone with my buddy, a sense of foreboding settled in, heavy like a blanket of fog. He had said, "Man, just keep your eyes open. You need more than a gut feeling before you confront her." Easy for him to say. Not living in a house where every laugh from her phone felt like a punch to the gut. It didn't take long for things to escalate. She started coming home late, her explanations vague and her patience thin whenever I asked where she'd been. "Just out with friends," she'd say, her voice laced with annoyance as if my concern was the real inconvenience. Then I stumbled upon it, a hidden social media account, a secret window into a life I was no longer a part of. There she was, in photo after photo, cozying up to him, her coworker, with captions that didn't leave much to the imagination. My heart didn't just sink, it plummeted. Confrontation was inevitable. "What is this?" I demanded, holding up my phone to her face, her secret life displayed in bright pixels. But she was unyielding, anger flaring in her eyes. "You're paranoid," she shot back, turning the blame around on me as if I was the one tearing us apart. It wasn't long before I found more, hotel bookings and plane tickets for two. When confronted, she spun a tale of surprises and future plans, but refused to let me see any more details. "You just have to trust me," she insisted, a plea that felt more like a slap, considering the circumstances. Trust, however, was a ship that had already sailed and sunk. Driven by a desperation I couldn't name, I did something I never thought I'd do. I took one of her prenatal visit documents and sent it off for a paternity test. The results came back like a verdict in a trial I didn't remember signing up for: non-paternity. The child she was carrying wasn't mine. Each discovery, each lie, was a thread unraveling the life we had built together. Yet, with every thread pulled, I felt not just the unraveling of our marriage but the disintegration of the man I thought I was, trustful, loving, but now, just a spectator in the demolition of his own happiness. The numbers didn't add up. Staring at the joint account statement, my stomach churned. Her spending had spiraled out of control, and when I'd ask, her explanations were as thin as the paper in my hands. "Just some things for the house," she'd say, avoiding eye contact, her voice a little too casual. I started to feel the distance not just in our home, but among our friends too. It was subtle at first, a cancelled dinner here, an unreturned call there. Then, the avoidance became unmistakable. Our once close-knit group seemed to dissolve overnight, leaving me stranded on an island of whispers and sideways glances. "Everything okay with you guys?" They'd ask, their eyes darting away too quickly. Something was amiss, and it was clear they knew more than they let on. The betrayal hit a new low the day she slipped up, calling me by his name. "Can you pass the salt, David?" There was no David in our lives, except for him, her coworker. The silence that followed was deafening, a gaping void where our relationship used to be. Her apology was mumbled, insincere, a band-aid over a wound too deep to heal. I needed the truth, no matter how much it would hurt. So, I planned a fake business trip, a ruse to catch her in the act. The pain of booking that hotel room just a few blocks from our home, knowing I'd use it as a stakeout to watch my own wife, was indescribable. And there it was, the undeniable proof I'd dreaded but expected. From the shadows of my rented anonymity, I watched them together, laughing, touching, a display of affection so public, so carefree, it was as if our vows meant nothing. The image of them together seared into my memory, a brand marking the end of what we had. I confronted her the moment I returned, the evidence laid bare. Her confession came amidst a storm of tears and blame. "Yes, there's someone else, but you were never there for me emotionally," she cried, as if her betrayal was somehow my doing. Her words were daggers, each one aimed with precision at my heart, turning the blame on me, making her infidelity seem like a desperate act of someone seeking solace. That night, the truth of our crumbling marriage lay exposed, raw and bleeding. Her affair, now out in the open, shifted something fundamental between us. What hurt wasn't just the infidelity, but the realization that our love, once unbreakable, had been reduced to ashes, with her blaming me for the fire. The night air felt heavy, laden with the kind of silence that precedes a storm. We sat across from each other, two strangers tethered by years of shared history, now unraveling. Her next words shattered the silence like glass. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice a whisper of the woman I used to know. The weight of her admission sank deep, anchoring itself to my very soul. "It was a mistake," she added, her eyes pleading for understanding I wasn't sure I had left to give. The revelation sent ripples through the fragile remains of our marriage. The coworker, the man who'd become an unwanted cornerstone of our lives, suddenly vanished into thin air, transferring to another city as if distance could erase his part in this tragedy. His denial of paternity was the final betrayal, leaving her alone in the mess we both found ourselves drowning in. In the wake of the chaos, she reached out, her proposal hanging between us like a lifeline she hoped I'd grasp. "Let's raise the child together," she suggested, a desperate bid for reconciliation. But the chasm her deceit had carved was too wide, too deep to cross. My refusal to entertain the thought marked the beginning of the end. Divorce proceedings were initiated, a formal acknowledgement of the irreparable fracture between us. Her reaction was swift, a transformation fueled by fear and desperation. She became hostile, her words sharp and merciless, threatening financial ruin if I pursued the divorce. The battle lines were drawn not just in court, but in the court of public opinion among our friends and family. Allegiances shifted, sides were taken, and the personal became painfully public. The scandal of her relationship with the coworker, now amplified by the pregnancy and our crumbling marriage, played out for all to see. The facade they had built crumbled, leaving behind a trail of destruction that spared no one, least of all her. Through it all, the realization that the love I once harbored had been replaced by a profound sense of betrayal and deception was the hardest pill to swallow. The process, marked by legal battles and public scrutiny, was a crucible, burning away any remnants of what we once had. In the end, the divorce wasn't just the dissolution of our marriage, but a liberation from a web of lies too tangled to salvage. The relentless buzz of the alarm clock pierced through the early morning silence, a cruel reminder of the day ahead. Lying in bed, the weight of the world felt heavy on my chest, a physical manifestation of the stress that had become my constant companion. My health had taken a nosedive, a casualty of the war that my life had become. Each day was a battle, not just in the courtroom, but within myself, fighting against the tide of emotions that threatened to consume me. Work became an impossible task. The focus and dedication that had once defined my career now eluded me, lost in a fog of anxiety and sleepless nights. My colleagues' concerned glances were a silent testament to my unraveling state, a stark contrast to the man I once was. In court, she wielded my deteriorating health and work performance like a weapon, a sharp blade aimed directly at my vulnerabilities. Her words painted me as unreliable, unworthy of the assets and rights we once shared. The emotional distress clouding my judgment, I made decisions that would haunt me, concessions that cost me dearly. The coworker, once a central figure in our tumultuous narrative, vanished from her life as swiftly as he had entered. His departure left her to navigate the storm of pregnancy and public scrutiny alone, a solitary figure in the aftermath of our shared destruction. In a twist that would have once seemed unimaginable, she came back to me, her pleas for reconciliation echoing in the empty space between us. "I've changed," she claimed, her eyes searching mine for a flicker of the love that had once bound us together. But the well had run dry, and I turned her away, the finality of our end cemented in the silence that followed. The fallout of our split rippled through the family, straining the bonds with my children, who struggled to find their footing in the shifting sands of our reality. Their pain was a sharp reminder of the collateral damage, innocent bystanders in a war they never asked to be part of. She faced a loneliness that mirrored my own, her social circles dwindling as friends chose sides, leaving her isolated in the wake of our public demise. Financial struggles followed, a bitter harvest of the seeds sown in our battles against each other. And so, I stood alone, the dust of our shattered lives settling around me. The victory in divorce felt hollow, a Pyrrhic win that cost me more than I was willing to pay. Surrounded by the remnants of the life we built, the loneliness was a tangible thing, a constant reminder of the price of revenge. In the quiet moments, the truth whispered to me, a bitter pill swallowed in the dark. My quest for justice had led me here, to a place of regret and solitude. The realization of my downfall was a cold comfort, the understanding that in seeking to right the wrongs, I had lost not just my wife and the life we shared, but a part of myself that I would never. I, 28 male, just found out that my wife, 29 female, has been cheating on me with our dog walker. We got married young, and have been together for about 8 years. Everything has always seemed perfect from the outside looking in. Our friends would always tell us how much they envied our relationship, and that was something we kind of loved. However, we had our share of troubles, we were just really good at hiding them. Almost nobody in our lives knew this, but we separated a few years ago, and we thought we might divorce. But the old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder, really proved to be true with us. After we got back together, we were stronger than ever. Both my wife and I wanted children, but due to some health issues my wife has, we knew that a pregnancy for her would be very high risk. Our plan was always to try and adopt a child, once we had the financial ability to do so. At the start of the pandemic, she and I were part of the big puppy boom that happened. Since both of us were home so much, we decided it would be the perfect time to adopt. We adopted a golden retriever pup from a rescue, and it quickly became the central focus of our lives. We thought that since we would both be home with it all the time there wouldn't be any issues, but neither of us was prepared for the energy this dog had. If we didn't let it out to run several times a day, then it would tear our house apart while it was trying to exert some of its excess energy. We ended up hiring a dog walker who would come to the house a few times a day while we were working to take him out on long walks, run with him, take him to the park, etc. The guy we hired was a graduate student at the local university, who was just trying to save up some money while he was in school. When I first met him, I thought that he was a nice kid, he loved the dog, and he was friendly enough with my wife and me. I work in pharmaceutical sales, so a large part of my job requires me to travel and meet face-to-face with potential clients. When everything started to go into the green, my usual workload resumed and I was traveling again. My wife was still working remotely, so there were a lot of nights that I had to leave her home alone. We had both been huge true crime podcast listeners, so we were a bit paranoid about her being alone. So we had a pretty solid security system installed throughout the entire house. One night I was working late, my team had an overseas conference call, and I hadn't planned on being home until at least 8 p.m. I got a notification on my phone that one of the cameras at my house had been turned off. I stepped away and took a look through all of the cameras on my phone and realized that one of the hall cameras had gone out. It struck me as very odd, and like I said, we were a bit paranoid about crime, so I was worried. I called my wife right away to make sure she was all right, but I didn't get any answer. That only made my paranoia worse. I looked through the other cameras to see if I saw any sign of my wife or an intruder, but I didn't see anything. I called her again and still, there was no answer. After explaining my concerns to my coworkers, everybody agreed that it would be best for me to leave just to make sure everything was all right. God forbid anything happened and I was stuck at work. I drove back to the house as quickly as I could and rushed inside, screaming my wife's name while I went looking for her. My dog ran right up to me, jumping on me like he always does, acting like nothing was happening. That eased some of my worries, but I still needed to get eyes on my wife. I ran up to the bedroom, taking a brief glance at the camera in the hall to see that it was fine. When I turned the knob on our bedroom door, it was locked. I banged on it and called my wife's name, hearing a little bit of scuffling behind the door. I've never been much of a hothead type of guy, but I thought something was happening inside of the room, so I kicked the door in. I walked through the broken doorframe and saw my wife completely naked and actively trying to hide our dog walker in the closet. They both froze when they saw me. The camera being shut off suddenly made sense. If she was sneaking him into our bedroom, she didn't want to leave any trail behind for me to potentially see. I was in complete shock when I saw it. My adrenaline was still pumping from thinking that there was some sort of intruder in the house. My wife was trying to say something to me, but I could hardly hear anything she was saying. The only thing that I was focusing on was the man in my closet. I wanted to rip his head off, but I knew that getting physical was only going to hurt me in the end. Without saying anything at all, I walked right out of the house and drove away. My phone was blowing up from my wife as well as some of my coworkers making sure everything was okay. A few days passed and I just tried to think about my next steps moving forward. I was definitely going to be divorcing my wife. There was no chance that I would be staying with her and potentially raising a child with her after what she did. I confessed what happened to one of my coworkers and they helped me to figure out a way to get back at them both. We had actually recommended the dog walker to a lot of people in our neighborhood because we liked him so much when he first started. On top of that, my wife was very involved in the community service circle in our town. That's actually where she found most of her friends. In hindsight, their sleeping together was very clearly premeditated. If my wife had the foresight to turn off the cameras to hide him, then they must have had some kind of chat about it. I looked through our phone bill to try to find any messages between them, and I found a treasure trove of explicit messages they exchanged. With the help of my coworker, we published a small little pamphlet full of the details of their affair, which had apparently been going on for quite some time. This was just the first time they had done it in the house. I went door to door and handed the pamphlets directly to the adults of the houses. I watched their faces for a moment when they realized what it was. It was scandalous news, and I just knew that they would be talking about it for a while. My wife was treated like a leper in the neighborhood after that. All of the friends she made during the time we lived there turned their backs on her, and she was all alone. On top of that, the dog walker was fired from more than half of the jobs he had in our neighborhood. After I turned everyone we knew against her, my wife didn't put up a fight during the divorce. I had enough evidence anyway to keep her away from all of the assets. I got to keep the house, which I turned around and sold shortly after everything was settled. Now I'm ready to move on with my life and forget all about her and hopefully find someone else that I can be happy with moving forward. OP, I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that. I can't help but wonder how much longer it might have persisted had she not altered the cameras in your security system. From the sounds of it, their affair started when you began traveling for work more often. It's such a shame that she would take advantage of that time by betraying you. It's good that your friends and neighbors realized that she had wronged you and cut her off too, and it's even better that the dog walker lost so many of his clients. I wish you the best of luck moving forward, and I hope you can find someone else who makes you happy. Now let's move on to our next story. I, 33 male, have been with my wife, 30 female, for a little over 5 years now. She and I have a pretty standard marriage. There's nothing really to know about it. We have one child together, we both work, and we take a vacation once a year as a family. It's just your average middle-class suburban lifestyle. I've always known that my wife has wanted to be a writer, so last year we discussed our options and we figured out a way for her to try and pursue those dreams. She had a wonderful idea for a novel, and we decided to bite the bullet and struggle for a few months while she buckled down and wrote it. The writing went well, and eventually she had her first full draft. After countless revisions on her end, she ended up looking for an agent to try and represent her so she could publish it. Somehow that was more difficult than writing the actual novel. We found some recommendations from Reddit about how a lot of conventions have time dedicated to pitching agents. We found a convention nearby and bought her a ticket. We couldn't both afford to go, so I stayed home with our son while she made some connections in the industry and sent out her manuscript. She came back the following Monday, and we didn't know for sure if she had any solid offers or not. After a few days, we got a call from an agent who wanted to represent her. We were over the moon. This particular agent had represented a lot of big-name authors and even had some bestsellers under their belt. I was extremely proud of my wife. She had put so much work into her novel, and it seemed like the risk that we'd taken with her quitting her full-time job was about to pay off. The agent lived in New York City and represented several authors in the Mid-Atlantic area. We didn't live too far from there, so it wasn't out of the picture for my wife to travel into the city to meet with him. They both set a standing date for every other Friday to meet at his office in the city so they could discuss potential publishers, editing, film and television rights, etc. I was under the impression that the agent would have wanted what was best for her, since they would be getting a cut of whatever deal the publishers made for her manuscript. What I didn't know was that he only agreed to represent her because he wanted to sleep with her. I wasn't worried for the first month of their relationship, but when their meetings became more frequent and my wife was going to New York once a week or more, I started to get suspicious. I would ask her if they were making any progress, and she would tell me that they were working on it, but couldn't give many details. She told me that she was scheduled to meet with publishers, but wouldn't give any specifics. Before that, everything she told me would be full of details. I couldn't shake the feeling something was up. When I asked her if there was something going on, she got angry. She made it seem like I was crazy and jealous for even thinking she could have been up to something. One weekend, she was scheduled to go to the city to see her agent again. She told me that she had a couple of important meetings with publishers lined up, so she would be staying in a hotel overnight. My gut was telling me it was a lie, so I decided to follow her. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I felt like she was lying and I just needed to clear a few things up. I dropped our son off with my mom for the weekend and followed her to New York. I started to think that maybe I was overreacting, but I waited anyway. About an hour of waiting passed and she walked out with her agent. They were laughing and he had his hand on her back. That was a bad enough sign for me to continue watching them. They went to his car, leaving hers behind in the garage. I continued following them to see if anything else happened. First, they went to a nice restaurant together and ate outdoors, sharing a bottle of wine and holding each other's hands. I made sure to take some photos for evidence if needed in the future. Toward the end of what I realized was their date, her agent leaned over and kissed her. I was angry and hurt, but I needed to see what was going to happen with my own eyes. I followed them back to his townhouse, where I was no longer able to see them, but by the music I could hear playing, I could only assume they were sleeping together. I drove back home, taking advantage of my son not being there to go into my wife's office without any witnesses. I tried to log into her computer, but the password I thought she would use didn't work. I realized then that she had something to hide on that computer. In any other circumstance, my wife's forgetfulness would have annoyed me, but I was able to find the username and password written down on a note. When I logged in, I found dozens of saved pictures and videos of her agent. In some of the conversations they had, it was clear he was role-playing some kind of weird power dynamic thing between them. Honestly, by the looks of it, he agreed to represent her entirely because of her looks. Before I left her office, I printed some of their chats and started planning how to expose them both. I figured if the agency that he worked for knew that he had done something so unethical, they would drop him, so I reached out to them to see. It had taken several days for me to hear anything back from the senior partner of the agency. By the time they called me to listen to what I had to say, my wife was already back home and planning her next trip to the city. I told them everything, emailed the chats, and explained how the agent hadn't actually done anything to help with the novel. The partner told me that what he did was a breach of the agency's ethics, and they would be dealing with him. I asked about what would happen with my wife's representation, and they told me that they would have another agent evaluate her work and see if was a place for her. A few days passed and I'm sitting in the living room watching cartoons with my son and my wife came running out of her office in tears. She said that the agency had dropped her because her agent was fired and no other agents wanted to take on her work. I sent my son to his room and told her to sit down, then I explained what I did and how I was planning on divorcing her. She tried to deny it and tell me I was crazy, but I showed her the evidence. Everything was in my name, so I told her she had a week to find somewhere else to stay before I put the house up on the market, and that I would be at my mother's house with our son while she was getting everything sorted out. I grabbed my son and walked away from her, knowing that it was probably the worst day of her life and she had no one to turn to. OP, I'm so sorry you had to go through something like this. You made sacrifices for your wife to follow her dreams, and she repaid them by betraying you. The agent's intentions seemed very clear. They never actually planned on helping her publish her book. Your wife definitely tried to gaslight you into believing their relationship was professional when it was not. You did a good job by following your gut and looking into their relationship further. It's clear that she had no intention to come clean and tell you, she even tried to hide it from you. From what you described, it sounds like you handled telling the senior partner of the agency with maturity. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. I collapsed at work and was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. The test revealed that I had a disease and I had to undergo emergency surgery right away. Feeling anxious, I contacted my husband. I'm about to undergo surgery. I think I'll be hospitalized for about a week to monitor my progress after surgery. I thought he would rush to the hospital, but instead he said with a hint of pleasure. A week, huh? Well, you'll be safe in the hospital. This is a good opportunity for you to take a break. Suspicion rose within me, and I decided to check his credit card statements. Turns out he took advantage of my long-term hospitalization to go on a trip abroad with his mistress. I was livid. I'll show him what I've got. After the surgery, I showed a remarkable recovery and began to prepare for my revenge on Tom. I can't wait to see the look on his face when he returns from the trip. My name is Nancy. Tom and I have been married for 10 years. We are in a phase where we've become indifferent towards each other, almost as if we were part of the furniture. But I guess that's what marriage after 10 years is like. Since we don't have any kids, we both work at the same pace as when we were single and money is not a concern. I believed we would continue to live out our retirement peacefully. However, for a few years now, Tom has been acting strange. He never used to care about his appearance, but now he's suddenly concerned about how he looks. Hey, when did you get such fancy clothes? When I asked, Tom replied in an annoyed tone. What? Does it matter? I sometimes meet people from work outside the office. Not only that, he started buying clothes that younger people would wear and even started going to a trendy hair salon. I'm going to the salon for a bit. As he was about to leave, I couldn't help but stop him. Hey, where have you been getting your hair done lately? You used to go to the $10 barber shop near the train station. To which he replied in a grumpy tone. It's none of your business how I spend my money. You go to the salon, don't you? I'm not complaining. I just noticed that you're dressing up a lot lately. Maybe you just don't care enough about how you look. He was usually working late hours or out town on business trips, so I didn't pay much attention to when he came home. But lately, I noticed that when he came home late, he always smelled of perfume. Hey, this suit? It smells a bit. Kind of like a woman's perfume. When I interrupted him with that, Tom was visibly flustered. Oh, well, on the way home, there was a woman next to me on the crowded subway who was wearing a pretty strong perfume. Maybe that's what you're smelling. His excuse seemed fishy. His actions pointed towards one thing. Clearly, they were signs of infidelity. When I checked our bank account, our savings had been rapidly decreasing for the past few years. He was probably spending it on his mistress. Who was she? How should I find out the truth? And if he was indeed cheating, what should I do? As I thought about these things on my own, I gradually lost my appetite and became depressed. Then one day at work, I collapsed. Nancy, are you all right? I'm calling an ambulance now. As I was losing consciousness, I could hear the distant voice of my colleague. The next time I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed. I was probably under stress because of Tom. The doctor who examined me recommended that I be hospitalized for further tests, since I hadn't expected to stay overnight. I didn't have anything prepared and immediately called Tom. Hello, Tom. I collapsed at work today and was taken to the hospital by ambulance. An ambulance? What are you doing? Are you in hospital now? Yes, they want me to stay overnight for tests. It's nothing serious, is it? I think it's just stress. I couldn't say outright that it was because of Tom's affair, so I was vague with my words. Then Tom, sounding relieved, said this. Well, you've scared me there, so you're not coming home tonight, huh? Yes, the test results will come out tomorrow. All right, I got it. The hospital will provide everything you need, right? I don't need to come, do I? Huh, well, I guess it should be okay. But you'll come to hear the test results tomorrow, right? Huh? Do you need me there? I'm no expert. I won't understand anything they say. I don't want to hear the results alone. As I yelled that out, Tom reluctantly agreed to come to the hospital with me. The next day, when I heard the test results with my husband, I couldn't believe my ears. The doctor told me they are signs of a stroke, so we need to perform surgery immediately. When I looked at Tom next to me, he seemed just as surprised. Tom pondered for a moment, then asked the doctor, so that means I can't go home today, right? Correct. We'd like you to stay in the hospital today, and we'll perform the surgery either tomorrow or the day after. And how long will it take until she can be discharged? Well, it depends on your recovery after surgery, but probably about a week. A week? I see. Okay. As we left the consultation room with heavy hearts, Tom said, I'll make a phone call, and walked away. I could hear him talking with someone in the distance. She won't be around for a week. This is an opportunity. Might as well. After finishing his call, Tom came back and hastily started getting ready to leave. I hurriedly tried to hold him back. Wait a minute. You're leaving already? I wanted to talk more. Talk? About what? We've heard everything from the doctor, haven't we? We just have to trust the hospital now. Seems like a good place, so don't worry. You should get some rest. Good luck with the surgery. He left those cheerful words for me, who stood there stunned, and Tom briskly left. Even though I called to him, the time of the surgery, he never answered. From that point, Tom never showed up at the hospital, and I had to go through the surgery alone, filled with anxiety. The surgery was successful, but days passed without a word from Tom, and he never came to the hospital. Our house phone went straight to voicemail, and his cell phone was unreachable. That reminded me of that phone call. With a bad feeling, I checked Tom's credit card statement online. The statement showed a purchase record of 2 airplane tickets, to Hawaii, no less. While I was anxiously staying in the hospital alone, Tom was enjoying a trip abroad with his mistress. But that wasn't all. Tens of thousands of dollars on designer brands, and dining in high-end restaurants. He'd been spending an amount of money that I'd never dreamt of using, and doing so quite extravagantly. Furthermore, I was able to trace Tom and his mistress's accommodations from the credit card statement, and from there, find her social media. The mistress's social media was chock full of pictures of her and Tom, on dates. She must have been sure she wouldn't get caught. Facing all the evidence, my anger towards Tom bubbled to the surface. I couldn't forgive him. I would retaliate. After surgery, as I lay in my hospital bed, all I could think about was how to exact revenge on Tom. Eventually, I came up with a plan. And after that, I could feel an energy surging from within me that I didn't even recognize. Before the surgery, I was nearly crushed with worry. But now my anger towards Tom had transformed into power. The only thing on my mind is getting better as soon as possible, so that I can carry out my revenge. Even the doctor who came to check on my post-operative progress was surprised. Well, this is impressive. It's rare to see someone recover at this speed. Something happened? With a faint smile, I answered. There's something I need to do, so I wanted to get discharged as soon as possible. So, with a recovery speed that could only be described as miraculous, I was discharged earlier than expected. I didn't tell my husband that my discharge date was moved up, and went home alone. There's no point in contacting him if it's just going to go to voicemail anyway. Besides, there's plenty I need to do from here on out. There's no time to rest. I began meticulously preparing for my revenge. The first time Tom contacted me on my cell phone was the day I was originally scheduled to be discharged. Nancy, I just went to the hospital, and they said you've already been discharged. Yes, my post-operative progress was good, so I got discharged earlier. You could have let me know. Seems like your phone was turned off all this while. Oh, right. I forgot to charge it. My bad. Okay, I'll head home now. An hour later, Tom called me again. Hey, Nancy, what the hell is going on? What do you mean? Don't play dumb. Our house is gone. Oh, you've noticed. I don't need it anymore, so I've cleared the land and put it up for sale. It's in a great location, so I bet it will sell quickly. What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean you don't need it anymore? That house is our marital property, isn't it? How dare you think you can just sell it off like that? I didn't expect to hear the phrase, our marital property, out of your mouth. What do you mean by that? You know, the money in our joint bank account? That's also our marital property, right? I've known for a while now that you've been spending it on your own. Well, there are various circumstances related to my work, you know. Related to work, huh? So going on an overseas trip with your mistress is also part of your job? How? How did you find out about that? You've been careless, haven't you? I can check the credit card statements too, you know. I know about the overseas trip tickets, the accommodation, the restaurants you've been to, and your women's luxury items. I know everything you've spent on your mistress. As I raised my voice, Tom fell silent. I said again, you're the one who started misusing our marital property, aren't you? So I'll be taking the money from the sale of the house to cover what you've given to your mistress so far and for compensation. Compensation? But what about our living situation after selling the house? Don't tell me you're trying to keep living together with me. There's no way I'm not going to divorce a husband who goes on a romantic trip while his wife is in the hospital. Divorce? Wait, it was just a fling. I never wanted to divorce you. You spend more than $10,000 on a fling. If that's the case, I want even less to do with such an idiot. Plus, you prioritized a trip with your mistress over being by your wife's side during emergency surgery. That makes me less than a fling to you. There's no way I could live like this any longer. That's not true. You're my precious wife. Do you think I can believe you now? No matter what you say, I don't want to see your face anymore. I'll be living freely in a new home, so you can do as you like. Go to your mistress or something. Are you serious? You'll regret it. What I regret is the 10 years of married life I've spent with you. You've forgotten that I provided for you these 10 years, haven't you? Provided for me? Don't joke around. The savings you squandered included the money I earned from working, didn't it? Don't get high and mighty after spending it all. Don't you have any sentimentality? Is this how you treat a husband you've been with for years? That's rich coming from you. I'm just throwing your own words back at you. As a kindness, I've put your stuff at the dump, so if you don't hurry, the garbage collectors will take it. That's a lie, right? Damn it. Don't screw with me. I'm done with you. With that, Tom hung up in a hurry. He's probably rushing to the dump right now. When I threw out the large items, I placed the divorce papers on top. Tom should be noticing the divorce papers by now. After saying all that, he's bound to agree to our divorce. While hoping that he would never contact me again, I was about to start a new life. But within a month, I got a call from Tom again. What now? I don't have anything more to discuss with you. With that, I tried to hang up, but I could hear Tom's screaming voice from the other end. Wait, don't hang up. We haven't filed for divorce yet. I'm still your husband. Listen to your husband. We haven't filed for divorce. His unexpected words left me with no choice but to listen to what Tom had to say. What do you mean we haven't filed for divorce yet? Well, after that, I decided to live with her. I've decided to observe a little longer before getting a divorce and remarrying. It was the right decision. Why? She spends money like water. Plus, she says things like, if we're getting married, I want to be a homemaker. Even if we have a ton of savings, it won't be enough if I marry her. I knew that even before you two started living together. I'm surprised you didn't notice her spending habits after you've showered her with gifts. Then Tom said as if he was impressed. I see, Nancy, you're solid. I'm certain from what you just said, you're the only one who can be my wife. Excuse me? Nancy, let's start over. You've just been sick. It must be scary to be alone, right? Is this guy an idiot? He won't understand unless I give it to him straight. I took a deep breath and raised my voice. Scary? How dare you say that? The most scared I've ever been was when I was alone in the hospital on the day of my surgery. Even when I was trembling with fear before the surgery, even when I was enduring the pain after the surgery, you weren't there for me. I'm really sorry about that. I wasn't thinking straight. It's not just that time, is it? After all this time cheating on me, how can you say that? A lot has happened, but I can't do without you. You feel the same way, don't you? That's why you've been with me for 10 years, isn't it? Stop talking nonsense. I'm certain that I can't continue with you after what happened. I can't even imagine spending my life with someone I can't build a relationship of trust with. So you don't want to give it another try? No, not at all. What about my feelings? My affection for you disappeared a long time ago. I still have feelings for you as a family member, and I thought we could spend the rest of our lives thanking each other. You've trampled on those feelings. Tom fell silent, and I left him with these final words. But I do have one thing to thank you for. Once I found out you were cheating, I was so angry that I felt like I couldn't afford to be sick. I decided to level that house and sell it before you returned from your cheating trip. What the hell is that? Thanks to you, I was able to recover surprisingly fast. Even the hospital doctors were shocked. It seems like my anger towards you became the motivation to keep going. I'll thank you for that. Nancy, think this is over? No, go to hell with your mistress. Goodbye. Without listening to Tom's reply, I hung up the phone and immediately contacted my lawyer. I couldn't stand postponing the divorce any longer. I intended to fight this legally. I had saved all the evidence of his infidelity and was ready to submit to my lawyer. I was sure the divorce proceedings and the demand for compensation for emotional distress would go smoothly. If I left everything to my lawyer, there would be no need for me to contact Tom anymore. To ensure that I wouldn't get calls from him, I even changed my cell phone number. I doubted he would dare come to my workplace. Even if he did, I had informed my colleagues about the situation. Since Tom's bad reputation was already well known in the office, I believed they would alert me immediately if they saw him and avoid any direct encounters. Everything proceeded exactly as I planned. Tom, after hearing from the lawyer, obediently agreed to the divorce and accepted the demand for emotional distress compensation. As for his mistress, apparently, she had resigned to paying the compensation since she couldn't deny their affair. It seemed she was all ready to remarry Tom once our divorce was finalized, and she insisted on paying her part of the compensation from Tom's savings, treating it as if it belonged to both of them. At this rate, his savings would be drained in no time. He and his mistress seemed set to continue their irresponsible relationship, and I could see that Tom would be in a tough time for a while. Yet, I had no sympathy for him at all. He brought this on himself by cheating with a money-grabbing woman. On the other hand, I managed to rent an apartment of the same size as before, using the money from selling our house and the compensation from the divorce. The fruitless 10 years I spent with Tom won't come back, but now I can live my life without being controlled by him. If I ever remarry, I would make sure it is with someone who values trust. I made up my mind to follow that